Good evening, Warriors, and welcome into another edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, Mr. Robert Hagan. Robert, it's Tuesday, and we're here. I don't know how to do this show normally. What do we do next?
Well, we wait for this Florida-Michigan game to get over with, and we watch our other bowl game that's going to be on tonight during the show. Yes, I said another bowl game.
No. We will not do that. We are going to go ahead and ignore that bowl game like I have all of the other bowl games. And we are going to talk about other sports that actually matter. It is funny to me, though, that I have not watched a single snap of any of these bowl games. You sent me a couple of crazy catches from one of the games, but I have not watched a single snap. But I am 7-1 in the pit so far. I don't care. The bowl games, there's so many of them. There's 38 of them before our next show, it feels like. I've spent an hour and a half just randomly picking teams before the show because there's so many bowl games. I heard Idaho got invited to a bowl game at this point because they got knocked out of their tournament. So they went, here, come do this bowl game. It's a mess. It's a total mess. It's too much, but there's a lot of them. We'll get to that in the second hour. We'll also get into some Major League Baseball off season, of course, talking about all the local stuff, high school and college. Do a mini preview of the Vista Holiday Tournament. The full one will be next week when we'll get Mike Tatko back on the show. He's kind of become a yearly occurrence here shortly after Christmas to be able to talk about that. And of course, we'll get into everything based around the NFL. But of course, we want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, as obviously a lot of these festivities will take place before our next show. So we want to wish everyone out there just a fantastic holidays. Hopefully everyone stays safe, has a good time, and doesn't get coal in their stockings like Hagan will.
I will, unless the grandkids bring me something cool, which will be there. Yes, Robert Taylor, about time. Are you saying because now we're finally back on our normal scheduled Tuesday night?
Yes,
that would be.
It's a complete mess. And by the way, let's talk about that schedule real quick. Next week? Yeah, next week, normal Tuesday show. We can't do a Monday show because that's Christmas and that's just not happening. Tuesday show, normal time. Again, my tackle will be on. In January, we've talked about this. One of us has a Tuesday high school game every Tuesday for the entire month of January. Never do both of us have a Tuesday game at the same time. So our plan as of right now is to have our normal Tuesday show every Tuesday in the month of January, and we will see each other at some point in February. That's just how it's going to go. The one exception might be the last one in January or January 23rd when we're getting ready for Golden Throne. I do think both of us have to be there for that show, so that might be a Monday show at that point, because then we try to get the principals on at least, or some of the coaches on to talk about all of those events. So other than January 23rd, I think the other four shows will be on schedule Tuesday at 6 p.m. with guest host. Robert Taylor has promised me he will be on with me at least one time on those. I will just say one time. And that is 2 hours you will not want to miss. The amount of yelling we do in chat form throughout a week cannot fit in a 2-hour format. But obviously Eric Watkins will probably get asked to do them. Who knows who else we will find. But January will be full of guest hosts. Just think old WWE times where they had the special guest Rod GM or whatever they had. So we'll have fun with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have to roll with it as much as things are crazy already in the schedule with all the games and I don't know. This is where I start getting amped up. I mean, it's the Christmas time. Yeah, it's a little this week, but next week it fires up. Well, you talked about it the other day. It's our one of our favorite top 3 events of the year, and then we have right at 3 weeks until the next event that is our favorite of the year. So it's time to go, and it's go time now.
Yeah, definitely ramping up to all of that, but let's get right into it. Let's get into the National Football League. It is starting to wind down its regular season. 3 weeks are left in the regular season, which is absolutely insane to me. And there are only 4 teams that have punched their ticket already for the postseason. A lot can happen in these final 3 weeks. Let's look at last night's game as the Seattle Seahawks stunned the world with a crazy come from behind victory to take out the Philadelphia Eagles, which not only kind of shakes up the NFC East with Dallas, but really shakes up the wild card as Seattle, who we all thought were dead in the water, are right in the mix right now.
Yeah, 100%. Seattle gives Philly now the 3-game losing streak, and uh, even in the power rankings, I typed about it. Should we be worried now that Philly has slipped all the way down to the 5th seed? Is this the toughest 5th seed team that you don't want to go against if you are one of these other teams, which could easily switch around even the next 2 games? But Philadelphia does have probably the easiest of the schedule remaining, with 2 of them being against New York Giants, and then also hosting in the Arizona Cardinals. So you look at their schedule. I'm not too worried about it. It just kind of depends on what happens with Dallas. Can Dallas not do what they did the other day? So am I worried about the Jalen Hurts being sick this last week? Not really, but anything is possible and anything can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Eagles going through their downtime is a little shocking. I know this kind of comes off the heels where who was it, Robert Griffin the third, or what? Who was the quarterback or the former quarterback that came out and said that they should bench Jalen Hurts until he's 100%? There was a former quarterback out there who had that notion, saying that they should start Marcus Mariota for a couple of weeks, make sure Hurts is healthy and ready to go, and then get him ready and go on the big playoff push. Because really, at this point, San Francisco is far and ahead the best team in the NFC. Obviously, they only have a 1-game lead, so you don't want to fully give up on the chance of being the 1 seed. But what's the bigger difference right now if you are the Eagles? Like, if you're the 2 seed, yes, you get the 7th seed, and you get to play at home, and you're guaranteed to play at home unless you play San Francisco. That is important, and I'm not saying it's not, but your first round matchup could be against a red hot team. The Rams are looking scary. Seattle is showing on Monday that they could be scary. So would you rather play a team like that or be the 5th seed and you get whatever garbage comes out of the NFC South? Sure, you have to play on the road, but you get them on the road against a garbage team. But so, and with that being the case, it was more so of making sure Hurts was then 100% for those games was kind of the big point. But what do you think of that?
I think Marcus Mariota probably could have went into that game and probably could have handled the Seattle Seahawks a little bit better than what they did. I mean, they rode Jalen Hurts for 13 carries in this game, 82 yards. Yeah, he had the 2 touchdowns again, but to rely on this guy that had been sick for, I think they said Thursday night, late Thursday night, Friday morning, tried to isolate himself. I'm still shocked that they didn't just have Mariota start that game. But I don't think I'm so worried going into the next couple. But if you're Philadelphia, do you look at it this way? And now that you're 1 game back in that number 1 seeded position, you get probably a little bit easier game. But you look at what San Francisco's got. San Francisco has the Ravens, I think, is the only game that's going to be tough for them. You've got Dallas with their upcoming schedule that could be a little shaky with the Detroit Lions, and you get the Buffalo Bills, Buffalo at Buffalo. Then you get Miami.
They already played Buffalo last week, man.
Right, Miami. That's what I meant. I meant Miami and
listen,
Detroit
guys, we're not used to this Tuesday show thing. All right, leave us alone.
Yeah. So it's kind of like our bowling league. There's so many things that could happen based on
the actual NFL league has nothing on our NFL bowling league and how crazy it is right now. I'll tell you right now. In our bowling league, for those that don't know, even if you don't care, I'm sorry. Our AFC right now has 8 teams that are 8-6. It is a complete mess. But yeah, I'm still believing that Philadelphia is going to win that division. Even with this loss to Seattle, they, as you said, they have a much easier final 3 games. For Dallas, their one home game where they have a very long undefeated streak at home, and give them credit for that, is against Detroit, which is a difficult game. But the other 2 where they've really struggled is on the road. And the Dolphins are definitely no pushover. That's going to be a really fun game on Christmas Eve. And then the final game of the year in the regular season is against Washington. Mm-hmm. And yes, Washington's not playing for anything. And Ron Rivera is going to be on his way out, most likely. But that's a team that can sneak up on you in that final week, especially if you're struggling at home. So I still believe Philadelphia is going to end up winning the division, and it's kind of whether they'll be the 2 seed or the 3 seed with what Detroit does.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think the one team that scares me the most coming out has to be the Rams. I mean, as hot as they have gotten over the last couple of weeks, Cooper Kupp is healthy. Nakua didn't have near as many yards in this last game, but if I'm any of those teams right now, I don't think I want to face those guys.
Yeah, Rams are red hot. Let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. We haven't really talked about them, as they did win that game on Monday night. They are currently the 8th seed. We'll break down all the playoff pictures here in a little bit, but they are just on the outside looking in with a possibility, and they do it behind Drew Lock, as Geno Smith was unable to go. And what I like about what we saw from the Seahawks on Monday is, Kenneth Walker III missed a couple of games. Now he's starting to look a bit more healthy. He looks really good. He ran through a couple of defenders on a couple of big runs. DK Metcalf has a couple of ridiculous catches in there as well. And it just feels like a team that, whether it's Drew Lock or Geno Smith, neither of them are great quarterbacks, but they have a good enough defense and a good enough run game and enough weapons out there that while I would not go, oh, I'm predicting them to make a playoff run, I would put them in the same camp as the Rams. If they make the playoffs, that's not a team you really want to play right now.
No, and you said it 100%. The weapons that are getting better, they're getting more healthy. I think the biggest thing is they've got to get the ball to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf a lot more than they did. I mean, they were very slow to get that ball to Metcalf in last night's game. Yeah, he ended up with 5 receptions for 78 yards, but still, they've got to get him his touches. I mean, he is a true number 1 receiver. Get the focus on him. But to target 9 different receivers by Drew Lock in this game is huge. But don't take anything away from this defense. You look at the defense too. You got Julian Love, who comes away with 2 big interceptions in that game. Bobby Wagner looking like the Wagner of old. That's another team that could be very sneaky getting into the playoffs.
After Seattle, their final 3 games are at Tennessee, who have a big question mark at quarterback themselves right now. It looks like Will Levis will not be able to go this upcoming week. Then they get Pittsburgh, and is it going to be Mason Rudolph? Is Kenny Pickett going to be back? Are you going to play quarterback for Pittsburgh? Who knows? And then they get Arizona the last week, and they're a complete mess. Though their running game looked really good against the 49ers, which was a bit shocking. But those are 3 very winnable games for the Seahawks, and it is starting to really look like 10-7 might be the mark you have to get with the Rams and the Seahawks both going in the correct directions, and a couple other teams trying to hang in there for dear life. So Seattle has a chance, and that's not something we thought was going to be the case a couple of weeks ago, but this is a big win for a Seahawks crew. And with Pete Carroll, you know him and his cheerleading mentality and his leadership ability. This is a game that can catapult a team, and Pete Carroll's going to make sure he does everything he can to make sure of it.
Yeah, he's one of those ones that could be unpredictable with what they do to change things up just a little bit. Like I said, they need to focus and get that ball a little bit more to Metcalf. Granted, that whole receiving core with Lockett, Noah Fant making some big catches. I mean, how do you go about game planning that team now where they're starting to get a little bit more playing as a group together? You know, who would have figured the name Jake Bobo would have made a couple of catches in this one? Noah Fant, Tyler. I mean, you can throw the ball to any of those guys, and something can happen. It all boils down to, does Geno Smith come back again from this groin injury, or do you ride it out with Drew Lock?
Speaking of a team that could make, that is currently on the outside looking in, but if they make the playoffs, could be dangerous. How about we switch to another game from this past week? The Buffalo Bills completely dismantling the Dallas Cowboys. And what have we said for the last several years about this Bills team? They are far too one-dimensional. They rely too much on Josh Allen. We've said that for years. Well, Josh Allen was 7 of 15 for 94 yards and a touchdown. He had 8 carries, 24 yards, and a touchdown as well. James Cook, with the change at the offensive coordinator, has completely blossomed as the rookie running back. A lot of people really liked him in the offseason as far as fantasy goes. If you somehow did end up with him and did well enough to make the playoffs, congratulations. And you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. But these Buffalo Bills, man, if they make the playoffs, I know it's been the joke for years that, all right, well, Buffalo makes the playoffs and then they're going to implode. It almost kind of feels like they had their implosion already, and now they're on the upswing. And with so many other teams in the AFC still trying to figure out question marks, this is a team that I think anyone else that makes the AFC playoffs are begging for them just to miss out.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to go against them. And with them handing the ball off to Ty Johnson, James Cook, Johnson had another decent game with 9 carries. Latavius Murray, they all touched the ball. They all got the touchdown except for Johnson. You and I have talked, like you said, get the ball out of his hands and, make another player step up. But it was funny to listen to his comments last night. He felt, I'm not verbatim how he said it, but he said he felt like he was the guy that got the A grade for basically just showing up in a school project. And him talking about it in his press conference, he felt like he didn't do much of anything. He basically 7 passes and running the ball 8 times. I mean, it wasn't him. It was all James Cook in this game, and what they could do. And for a defense for the Bills holding Dak Prescott to 134 yards, just says how tough this defense is. Taylor Rapp, Dodson, those guys stepping up and causing havoc for Dak Prescott.
Yeah, for the NFL, it's not the same as Major League Baseball, where it just the person that wins the in-season tournament is a team that came into it the hottest. I think football kind of evens itself out as it goes, but we've seen teams go on a run. I mean, the Giants did it twice. The Packers did it years ago, where they came in as the 6th seed and ran the table. So the Bills can definitely do it. They have a lot of work to do if they want to make the postseason. But I'll just tell you this right now: it's like, yes, they lose a lot of tiebreakers as it is right now, and that's why they're a couple of spots down. But that AFC East is not out of the question. They are currently 2 games behind the Miami Dolphins with 3 to go, and you think, well, that's a lot to ask for. But I'll just go through these schedules. I'll pull the Robert Hagen over here. Final 3, the 2 games going up to the final week of the season for the Buffalo Bills is at the Los Angeles Chargers, who I think the Raiders just scored again against them. And then they play the New England Patriots, who have been god awful as well. And oh, yeah, by the way, the Patriots beat the Bills earlier this year. So if you've ever heard of a revenge game, this has all the makings for that. So we both believe Buffalo's 2-0 in that stretch. Yeah.
I agree 100%.
The Miami Dolphins host the Dallas Cowboys, who do not play well on the road. So maybe you give credit to the Dolphins there, but then they go to your Baltimore Ravens. The Dolphins can easily slip up once, possibly twice in that stretch. Yes.
I think they've got a great chance of slipping up against this defense of ours that has come out. Yeah.
And then week 18 is Buffalo and Miami. Buffalo needs them to slip up one time if they can run the table, win that week 18 matchup, and just like that, boom, they're AFC East champs. It's just crazy to think that they win these last 3 games. They still control their own destiny in the AFC East, as long as, I guess, Miami should lose 1, so they don't control it completely. But you feel like they do with the stretch that Miami has to go under. They don't. The Dolphins don't get my horrible New York Jets anymore the rest of this year. They got some tough games going forward. For Dallas, we talked about Philadelphia, where I don't really feel like they're too worried about home field advantage or not. I mean, they would rather get the 1 seed that looks like it's now out of the picture. For the Cowboys, though, it is imperative that they win this division and get a couple of home games, right?
I would think so, 100%. To be able to get that bad game, that bad taste out of their mouth, they need to win a couple and to host these games, but not knowing who that is going to be. I mean, all these 7-7 teams from Minnesota all the way down to New Orleans, it's still going to be a coin flip. And if they can stay there and host a couple of those games, hands down, they're going to be the most dangerous team, next to the 49ers in this NFC.
It's so weird that the Cowboys, for years, it always felt like they had an anti-home field advantage. Like for a handful of years, just a couple of years ago, it felt like the Cowboys played at home and they lost all the time. They would lose these crazy games at home, and we just couldn't figure out why. All of a sudden, they've turned it around. It's become a huge home field advantage for them. They're on such a great roll. Dak Prescott plays completely different levels of football when he is at home and when he is on the road. It'll be interesting to see what kind of falls out the rest of the way there. And I have seen an old buddy of ours, Mr. Eric Watkins, has made a couple of comments in the show. So I'm going to step back and let Robert Hagen gloat. I begged Eric for his team to help me throw the Hail Marys I needed to catch up in our pick'ems. I was still, 7 games behind going into last week. Threw in some just weird picks, just hoping. Nearly pulled it off, but the Jaguars gave me the chance to at least break even. That was not the case. Go ahead and gloat, sir.
I don't think I need to gloat all that much, but hats off to the defense for shutting Lamar down and getting to him for the Jaguars. They got to Jackson 3 times, 3 big sacks. So
you still talking?
I thought you had pushed a silly.
I haven't touched
silly ads. I know. Silly ad popped up on my ESPN, and I thought you had pushed the button because you had leaned back just about that time. No, so to be able to get to Lamar a few times, but listen, what that dude can do. You and I talked about it. throwing up the pass into double coverage to Isaiah Likely. Likely has stepped up a little bit for Mark Andrews not being there. But it felt like it was the run game in the last night, in that game, 251 team rushing yards. But it does come to a cost as, we lose the rookie that has been phenomenal this year in a couple of big games, and that's Keaton Mitchell. And so it's going to be Gus Edwards. It has to be him and Lamar Jackson. I think that the new OC for Baltimore, Monk, is going to have to design a few more run plays with Lamar scrambling out of the pocket to keep these teams on their toes going forward. But don't take anything away from the guy that was a little quiet. Zay Flowers has been huge for Baltimore, and hats off to the Jaguars for only letting him get 2 targets in that entire game. So, Jacksonville is a decent team, and that's a team that is going to be dangerous in the future, I think.
I don't like the sight of Robert. I was very excited to just get the ha-has and I was waiting for the didn't get any of it. I was waiting for the
I'm better than you, and you know it.
None of it. I got none of it. I don't like this side of Robert. I don't like this. It's Christmas, and I'm trying to be on the good list. Kind of. I don't like it. Does not make it for R&R Sports Report.
I got to be nice today. It is the season.
That's all right. But I guarantee you, if your Ravens lose to the 49ers, Jesse will come in and do that exact stuff to you. Just saying.
It's going to be, and I said it 2 weeks ago, we have the toughest final 4 games of the season, and it's going to be it's going to be tough going and watching this game happen with Baltimore in San Francisco and then Pittsburgh it ending out the year. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, listen, the Ravens don't play the sexiest football out there. They haven't in the history of their franchise. Really, I can't even think of a Cleveland Browns team back when they were the Cleveland Browns that played sexy football, but they do a fantastic job and they win games, and you got to give them credit. Once again, I kind of did not think that they were going to do that great this year. Obviously, all of the fact that Lamar Jackson is the only quarterback in the AFC North that has stayed healthy all year shows you how weird this year has been. But give credit to the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson with MVP are kind of your 2 front runners right now. Don't you think Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy are battling that out? Though I would 100% agree with Robert Taylor that CMC should be the MVP, but that's a quarterback-driven award. So do you think Purdy and Lamar right now are 1-2?
I think they have to be 1-2, but I am totally like Taylor. I think by far, hands down, you have to say another name with that one, and you've got to say Deebo Samuel in that conversation. What him and CMC is doing in that team. I am deathly afraid of what's going to happen in this defense. I think McDonald's got to set something up where you have one of your guys spying on McCaffrey the entire time, and I have to say it, make Purdy beat you. That's what I'm looking for in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Purdy's played great. Obviously, having what do they call them on First Things First? The Avengers alongside with them makes this team even more dangerous. But it's going to be fun these last 3 weeks of these playoffs. Usually at this point of the year, we're trying to figure out the last spot or two. And we're trying to go, all right, well, who's just going to be cannon fodder as far as the rest of the playoffs go? And we kind of already have figured out who's going to make the conference championship games. There could be one surprise in there. But for the most part, we have this figured out at this point. This year, I don't know. I have my favorites and I have my ideas. I think San Francisco will be there. I think Baltimore will be there. I think Kansas City will be there. I mean, even though they've not been at their 100% best, but it is the Chiefs, and until the Chiefs get beat in the playoffs, I will have to wait to see it. I mean, it's just every year where you're like, well, maybe this is the year Kansas City will get beat. They are the new Patriots where, okay, they made the playoffs. Now they're going to go on the run, and here it goes. And they do it every year. And they'll slip up here and there. But so I expect them to be in it. And then you got to think, what, Dallas, Philadelphia, maybe. But there's so many other teams that if you go, well, this team will make the conference championship game, I go, I could kind of see it. Who is your one team out of the ones I just mentioned? Take out Baltimore and Kansas City in the AFC. Take out San Francisco, Dallas, and Philadelphia. Give me one team in both AFC and NFC that you would love to see in the conference tournament because you really think they could make a run.
Wow. I'd like to see Indianapolis. I don't know if they will get through that first round right now, currently sitting in the 7th spot. They'd have to take on, if things were to end now, I think Miami would crush them. But I think if you put in Miami in that group, you got to take out and just look at those bottom teams. I think Indianapolis has to be that team and what they are doing. And now they've got a couple of guys that won't be playing the next 3 weeks. So how they adapt to that. So I think Indianapolis could be that one team.
To me, obviously the obvious one in the AFC is Buffalo. I mean, right now they are the 9th seed, but like I said, if they make the tournament, watch out. But as far as that team that I'm rooting for now to surprise everybody, I told you last week, Jake Browning, get your Brock Purdy on. It wasn't pretty on Saturday, but they go out and they get another win. Right now, they're the 6th seed in the AFC. They got a tough schedule, a road game against a divisional opponent in Pittsburgh. Of course, they then go to Arrowhead on New Year's Eve. That one obviously is an extremely tough game. You don't expect them to win that. And then they finish against Cleveland. I do think they're going to make the postseason, though. And Cincinnati really has not felt like they've missed a beat since losing Joe Burrow, and give full credit to Jake Browning. Like, how many backup quarterbacks? I've heard this somewhere. I've listened to a bunch of stuff today, so I apologize for ripping off whether Rich Eisen or First Things First. But who would have thought, like, with all of these backup quarterbacks that have come in all over the league, with all of these injuries, right? We get flashes in the pans with Joshua Dobbs looking phenomenal when he finally goes to Minnesota, and a couple of spots here and there where a backup quarterback looks great and then just turns into a pumpkin. Browning's not turning into a pumpkin. He continues to get better. And I think that the Cincinnati team has a good enough squad that they could make a run.
Yeah, I think so too, but they have to worry about, whether or not Jamar Chase is going to be a go for this next week, as he is dealing with that shoulder injury. But I think the part of it that keeps the Cincinnati team in there, and like you said, Browning has been very good for this team. I think it boils down to what's in front of him, and look at that offensive line between Orlando Brown and you've got Kappa and Williams that can protect him and give him the time. I think it boils down to those guys staying healthy, staying upright, and whether or not Jamar Chase, and Taylor says, Chase is the system. If he's going to be at this game, even this next week. So, and they've got the Steelers. So that's a Saturday game.
And then in the NFC, like I said, take out Eagles, 49ers, and Cowboys. Is it really just the Rams or the Seahawks that you would think possibly could make a run?
I think it's the Rams. I think they're a little bit more deeper, a little bit more to watch them run with Williams. Cup now back. Cup getting more and more healthy from his injury. And when you got Nakua on the other side, look out what this team is going to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Rams are the best chance. I think the Rams and the Seahawks both get in at this point. I think the Vikings are going to fall out of it, and the Rams and Seahawks will get the 6th and 7th seeds. But as they stand right now, and no explanations or anything, just give me your winner. We're looking ahead to Super Wild Card Weekend, and somehow the playoff standings never moved from today.
Okay.
Or Goodell decided to give us all a Christmas gift, and this is the playoffs, and we're starting it this week. All right. Just tell me, who do you got to win each of these current playoff matchups? Indianapolis at Miami.
Miami.
Are you excited to watch it?
I would be excited to watch this game. As long as Tyreek Hill was active, Tua has been phenomenal this season.
All right. Well, I shouldn't have asked the second question because you did so good at just giving me the straight answer the first time. And then I derailed you quickly. So that's my bad. I apologize. Cincinnati at Kansas City.
I'm going to take a step out there and just say more drops, no more Tony. Here come the Bengals.
Especially, I'd like to see that. I don't think Kansas City would win that game. I do think Miami would win that matchup as well. And then maybe the only ugly matchup in the AFC, Cleveland and Jacksonville. Not that it would be a bad game. It would just be an ugly game. But who do you got there?
Ugly game depends on if there so many depends, you know. Do you want to see the old man Joe Flacco go against Trevor Lawrence? I think youth prevails in that win. Even though Njoku has been phenomenal with Joe Flacco over the last couple of weeks.
And then in the NFC, Rams at Cowboys.
They're heated. They're on a heater. Give me the Rams.
That would be huge. Vikings at Lions. Have we lost faith in the Lions?
I haven't yet, you know, and I look at the idea of the Vikings. I had them winning their division this year. They just have not proved it. You know, Dobbs was the answer for a little bit. Now nothing. I'm going to take Detroit and Jared Goff.
Yeah, I would too. And then finally, the Eagles would go to Tampa Bay. Any chance Tampa Bay wins it at home?
I don't think so. I think the brotherly love and the tush push is all part of this game. Keep Swift running the ball. So give me Philly.
I don't know about that. And that is why we go to our NFL Weekly Awards, Offensive Player of the Week. The reason why I say hold on to that thought for now. How about Baker Mayfield, the quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? 22 of 28, 381 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Green Bay Packers. Well, that's not a big deal, you say. However, he is the first visiting quarterback in the history of Lambeau Field. I have been to Lambeau Field. There is a ton of history at that place. He's the first visiting quarterback ever to have a perfect passer rating. And Tampa Bay is starting to go in the correct direction. While their record doesn't show it, that might be a scary spot for either Dallas or Philadelphia to get that 5th seed and have to go on the road to the Buccaneers in that wild card round.
Perfect pass rating. We're talking about quarterbacks like Roger Staubach, Fran Tarkenton not have a perfect passer rating at Lambeau in all the games that they've ever had to play there. That is crazy. That is crazy. For me, hands down, has to be the guy that put the team on his shoulders. Give me James Cook, running back for Buffalo. 29 carries, 179 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Oh, yeah, by the way, he caught 2 passes for 42 yards and another touchdown. You said it. We talked about it earlier. Buffalo has needed a guy to take the ball and run, and I think they need to keep adding to this play scheme right now if they want to be successful.
Defensive Player of the Week. Let's give some love to the Seattle Seahawks, who got the win on Monday night, and give it to Julian Love, their safety, 9 tackles, and of course 2 interceptions. And at least on his 2 interceptions, he got both feet in. I'll still argue with anybody that would like to, except for Robert Taylor, because he knows what buttons to push to make me go absolutely insane. You'll see that in a couple of weeks. But I'll argue with anyone else that I forget the defender's name who got the interception in that game. His left foot never touched the ground. I'll continue to say it.
Yeah, it was very, very close. We were watching that live together, and so it was back and forth. We were watching it, trying to make heads or tail of it. I almost went Love, but I decided to go to the guy that had 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles, and that was Bradley Chubb of the Dolphins. 7 tackles, 5 of them solo, 3 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles in that game the other night.
Oh my goodness, Robert and I agree on something. And
wait,
in
I
the NFL.
I gotta write this down. Hold on.
To be fair, it has nothing to do with the Chiefs, so that's probably why we agree. Let's look at some NFL news real quick before we look at our power rankings. Obviously, the big news: Brandon Staley finally fired from the Los Angeles Chargers. We all wondered if he was going to come out for the second half of that game against the Raiders. He did, but it did not last much longer than that. Of course, the general manager also getting fired there as well. My question to you, is this now the most coveted job that is available in the NFL going into the offseason?
I would think so, but you got to look and to see who is going to really want to move. You said a name a few minutes ago, and I think they hired him just to groom him. And we've had this conversation. We both think the Ron Rivera is going to be done at the end of the season, and that's going to be Eric Bieniemy's team. So
I don't know about that yet either. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's now changed, but Washington has not been winners with Bieniemy there. But for whatever reason, Bieniemy was up for many head coaching jobs, and they always passed him over. Just because now he went to Washington, I don't think it's there going, all right, now you have the keys. I would love to see it. And you see that Kansas City has had some issues since he's been gone, because, I mean, all the reports were that he was really good at playing the bad cop to Andy Reid's good cop. And maybe that is why some of the issues are going on with Kansas City. But I would love to see Bieniemy get that job. But I'm not saying that's locked in, that when Rivera leaves, that it'll be Bieniemy's job.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The other name that I keep hearing, and he said it, he wasn't going to come back to the NFL, but look at the other Harbaugh brother coming back, and could he be the one that takes over for the Chargers in a big market area?
What would be another job out there that at least has been rumored to possibly be available that you would rather have?
Wow. Boy,
while you think about it, I'll tell you right now.
I think maybe New England, maybe.
I don't want New England's job at all. What pieces do you have other than a good defense? And I do not want to be the coach that has to follow Bill Belichick. The job that I want that's been rumored out there is Mike Tomlin's job in Pittsburgh.
The only reason I would say,
but I was going to say one reason and one reason only, I want the Steelers job. You're guaranteed to work there for at least 15 years.
Mm-hmm. They don't turn over. Yep.
They don't turn over anybody. So that's the job security I'm looking for.
The other side of it would be, like I was saying, why I said New England is you basically are handed the keys. You could rebuild that thing the way that you want it, because the only thing that has any substance in that team is a little bit of their defense. Why wouldn't you want to jump in with both feet and say, all right, if I'm taking this job, we're rebuilding from the bottom up, and whether you like it or not, get on the train, let's go. And
yeah, I mean,
why not?
You want to talk about a team that just feels like a quarterback away. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. They got good running backs, got good receivers. None of them can get the ball because their quarterbacks are garbage. Defense is really good. I agree with Jesse. I don't think Tomlin is going, but as far as rumors go, that's a possibility. I know the fans really want him gone, but Tomlin would get called by 15 other teams the moment he got fired, and he would not stay on the market long. Let's just say that. What's up with these Colts getting suspended?
Well, we don't know a lot, but Colts wide receiver / returner Isaiah McKenzie and cornerback Tony Brown was put on suspension by the Colts. This comes from the Colts, not from the league, as they're getting 3-game suspension for conduct detrimental to the team. Nothing has been said any more than that, but these guys were huge into what was going on. Brown being a huge special teams guy, and then McKenzie being the kick returner, punt returner. This might be a little bit on the tough side for this Colts team going into the next 3 weeks.
If they were big players on this team, they would not be suspended. I don't know what they did, but obviously it has not come out yet that I have seen. So it was just something that the Colts caught on to. If they were actual key contributors, it would not be a 3-game suspension. I'll just say that right now. They're special teamers. Yes, special teams are important, but far less than they used to be because kickoffs aren't even a thing anymore.
So this one, I'm going to throw this one at you. How about the Houston Texans signing your guy that just left your team, Tim Boyle?
He's not my guy.
With that being said, do you think CJ Stroud is done for the season with this whole concussion protocol?
Obviously, I mean, with concussion, there's a lot of who knows, and a lot every concussion's different, and the timetable is just completely unknown. It's not like a muscle injury where you kind of have a time frame on it for when it'll heal and what you have to do to kind of hit your recovery, and then some can heal a little bit faster. Concussion, it just takes time, and hopefully CJ Stroud can return. The Houston Texans are a fun team to watch, especially with him as the quarterback. He's been such a fantastic story. If the Texans ever have to start Tim Boyle, just burn the whole stadium down. He's garbage. He's so bad. I say that Trevor Siemian is worse. Just the whole Jets situation. I feel so bad for the rest of the New York Jets for what they've had to deal with at the quarterback position. It's just a mess. Let's move on to our power rankings. You can see all 32 teams along with all the blurbs from all 8 of us over on the R&R Sports Report Facebook page. By the way, we're nearing, 700 followers now, 800. Where are we at? A lot of people following us, and we appreciate you extremely much for all of the love and support you guys have given us for over 3 years now. But again, the power rankings are out there. Our overall top 5, San Francisco holds on to the top spot, but is still not unanimous. Chris still has the Baltimore Ravens as his top team. Baltimore moves up 1 spot. They are second. Miami moves up 2 spots. They are in third. Kansas City stays where they are at 4. And then Dallas, after their loss, drops 3 spots to 5. Any issues with the consensus top 5?
No, I don't think so. I think with Dallas falling after their performance against Buffalo, well deserved. It took me a while to get it where I wanted them, and I only dropped them 2 spots, but still, I think that is very good for me. As much as I like Chris and all this, and him being on Baltimore, I think the defense is good for Baltimore, but those couple of offensive weapons of Deebo Samuel and McCaffrey, I just still barely puts the 49ers ahead of Baltimore right now. So I don't have an issue with those couple.
Yeah, mine are identical to our top 5 for the top 4. My 5th place team is a little different. We'll get to that in a second. So I'm not against anything there. It is interesting to me where teams kind of have moved around. Philadelphia, they finally dropping out of our top 5 after now losing 3 in a row, but they're not too far out of it. As actually, I think I put those in wrong. Hold on. Do I have that right? Yeah, Chiefs 4. Okay, I'm looking at the wrong week. It helps when you're looking at the correct week for where you put things. So what is your personal top
5? For me, I went with, and it was kind of back and forth with Philadelphia hitting that 3-game skid. I do move them out. So I bumped Dallas into the 5 spot, or excuse me, Detroit into the 5 spot, Dallas at the number 4 spot, with them at 10-4. Then Miami has to be 3. I mean, what they're still doing, what they did with Waddle and Tua this week, no Tyreek, hands down, they are there. And then Baltimore 2 and San Francisco 1, as I was saying a few minutes ago. I think the 1-2 punch of Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, it just has to be the best combo right now playing offensively for any team.
So actually, I do apologize. I was looking at the wrong thing when I put the notes down. It's Philadelphia that's 4, not Kansas City. Kansas City's 6th in ours. I have a bigger issue with that, where the Eagles did not move after their loss on Monday night. I know a lot of people try to get their rankings in before that game gets done. Most of them will edit it and fix it. But for the Eagles not to drop out of the 4th spot was a bit surprising to me, so much so that I put down Kansas City at the 4th spot because I just assumed that that's who was there. So my apologies on there. I've just pulled up the actual power rankings deal, so I was looking at the correct thing. So that's a little bit of a surprise there. I'm maybe too low on Detroit. I know you have them in the top 5. I still have them 7th. Trying to find spaces for them. I still have as I have the Cowboys 6th. I did move them ahead of the Eagles. I dropped the Eagles all the way down to 9th. And that's why I was shocked that they did not move in theirs. I have major concerns right now for Philadelphia. But my top 5, as I said, were San Francisco, Baltimore, Miami, and Kansas City. I have in the 4th spot. My 5th place team, and I thought I was going to be the highest guy until Eric came around and pushed them 1 spot higher. But I believe right now that the Buffalo Bills are the most dangerous team out there. And obviously their record doesn't show it yet, which is why I don't have them all the way up there. Excuse me, the most dangerous team in the AFC, I will say. Like if Buffalo and Baltimore played each other right now at a neutral site, I might go Buffalo. Like I would be tempted to pick the Bills. I think Baltimore at home, which is where they would be for playoffs, would get the win. But with the Bills figuring out their run game, I think they're very dangerous. So I had them up there. Look at some of the biggest movers and get your thoughts here. How about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after their big win at Lambeau Field, getting themselves back up into the number 1 spot? They moved 3.5 spots. They were 20th. They're now tied for 16th. What do you think of the Buccaneers?
They've played quite well. They have to keep Mike Evans in with this one, and it's going to come down to the end of the season, even after for this ball club, is who do they pay? Who with both Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans contracts are ending at the end of this one. It'll be interesting to see, but I if they can keep making that connection between the two of them, that could be dangerous.
Tied for that 16th spot with Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the Denver Broncos, going the opposite way. They dropped 5.5 spot. We had them almost in our top 10. Really started to believe in this team. They get 1 big loss, and we all jumped ship. What do you think?
Well, I had Denver at 11, and then this last week, and then I dropped them all the way down to 19th. I think just the things going on with that coaching staff, Russell Wilson, he is not the same Russell Wilson. I think they're on a downward spiral, and that's.
And then the other 2 big movers were on the Thursday night game. The Las Vegas Raiders crushed the Chargers. They moved up 6 spots from 28 to 22. Chargers went down 4.5 spot. They were 24th. They dropped down to a tie for 28th. The other thing I want to bring up as far as the rankings go is the gap between 9th and 10th as far as our averages. It was extremely close. The Buffalo Bills are our 9th ranked team with an average of 7.29, far above 9th place. Just shows you how congested 1 through 9 is. Then the Cincinnati Bengals finished in 10th in our rankings at 11.14, nearly 4 spots average difference between 9th and 10th right now.
Well, which tells you I got it right because I have Cincinnati right at the number 10 spot. But yeah, this week, we've been able to set our bottom, set the top very easily.
Yeah.
This week, for me, that 6 through 10 was the hardest one to come up with, hands down.
Yeah, it's a big mix in the middle. It's been a mix in the middle. I agree with you more the 5 through 9 right now was a bit difficult. And then even it's really tough to pick between Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Houston. The Rams are red hot. The Colts are red hot. Seahawks got a big win. That group to me, add Tampa Bay in there, I guess. And that's a whole big jumble of teams that are trying to fight to make the playoffs right now. And it was really interesting to kind of see where things went. And then you end up with a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars, who the team or the person that was highest on them was Sean at 10. And then you, me, and Chris all had them at 12. Like that was their gap, was within that 3 spot radius. With all of those teams I just listed, we all put the Jaguars right in the middle of that group.
Yeah, I think the Jaguars still have that chance to really make a big difference in the playoffs. I think they're more than capable, and it's whether or not Lawrence comes back healthy. We'll see if he gets to play after he goes into concussion protocol, after the game. So that's one of those teams I don't think I want to face right now. I mean, they can be very dangerous with ETN and that.
Let's go ahead and look at the Christmas slate. Week 16, again, just 3 weeks left, and we are spread over several days again on Thursday night football. It's a decent one. Some playoff implications. Both teams are 7-7. Saints and Rams. Both teams coming off a win. Derek Carr was a bit surprising. I thought the Giants might play a bit better against them, but I'm going to take the Rams here in that matchup.
Yeah, right now the Rams, it's sitting in 7th. They're in the playoffs, but you got to be very wary of what the New Orleans Saints can do. I think because it's a home game in LA, I'm going to take LA with the win.
And then on Saturday, we got a pair of, one fun matchup and one you can go hang out with family if you so choose. Bengals and Steelers to start things off. That one will be a lot of fun. And then Bills and Chargers. They threw that on Peacock. They went, you got to subscribe to our service if you want to watch that garbage. I think NBC, if you ask them, would like to flip that right now. Like, we'll give you the Chargers for free. Come subscribe to our network for Bengals and Steelers, please. Either of those really stand out to you? Obviously, with a couple of AFC North teams, you're going to be watching Bengals Steelers, yeah?
Yeah, 100% watching those guys go at it. It's going to be interesting what, that's going to be in Pittsburgh and what they're capable of. And you've said his name, and Jesse also commented on him. What Jake Browning can do with this against TJ Watt and this defense, it's going to be a very enjoyable game. And on all AFC North games are, I don't want to say a bloodfest, but it'll be a slobber knocker. Let's say it that way.
A couple interesting games on Sunday during the normal time slots. I'll just list them off here. You just give me one or two that you're really interested in. Colts and Falcons could be interesting, though the Falcons feel like they've lost their footing on a playoff spot. Seahawks at Titans could be a sneaky good game. Lions and Vikings, just talked about that being a possible playoff matchup. Browns and Texans, another couple of teams that are trying to get into the playoffs. Jaguars and Buccaneers all of a sudden has turned out to be an interesting game. Of course, the Cowboys and Dolphins as well. What one or two matchups really stand out to you there?
I think the best game that you could watch on that Sunday slate has to be the Dallas game, Dallas and Miami. I think it's going to be the afternoon game. But I'm going to lean to the other AFC North team. You look at Cleveland, you look at Houston right now. Houston's sitting at the 5 spot Houston at the 8 spot, Cleveland at the 5 spot. If something can happen, if CJ Stroud plays, they get in there and handle Joe Flacco and Cleveland, things get mixed up a little bit more. Throw them all in a hat, shake it around. But I think that might be the other game that's going to be worth watching.
Yeah, and then your Sunday night football game, because NBC has the games on Saturday, is on NFL Network, and that's why it did not get flexed out. It's the Patriots And the Broncos, that is a go hang out with your family on Christmas Eve. You filthy animals. You don't need to watch our football game at all. That is what that schedule says there. Monday, you get a big triple header though on Christmas. The NBA is usually the Christmas sport, not for us. So NFL went, well, you're not hanging out with your families anyways. Now you have to come watch our sport. Raiders at Chiefs, Giants at Eagles, and then, of course, Ravens at 49ers. Take out your game. Do either of the other two interest you at all?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in what Las Vegas can do against Kansas City. They've had a couple of crazy weeks where they score no points to scoring the most points in their franchise history in a game. They can play spoiler. I mean, they're 6-8 right now. I think they set down and could spoil that game and do something to Patrick Mahomes if Crosby can have a huge game at his defensive end game position.
Yeah, I've watched for Kelsey to go nuts. He dropped a touchdown pass this last week. And against the Raiders, they love to go crazy against them. The Raiders just scored 63 points. It would not surprise me if the Chiefs went, all right, it's our time. And they put up their 60-point game here against the Raiders just because they love to pick on this team. But on the other side of the coin, all the drops and stuff could definitely mess it up. So, and also, we talked about the easier game for the Eagles. It is a divisional matchup against the Giants. So if the Eagles continue to struggle, the Giants have shown that they can sneak up on teams as well. So decent slate around Christmas spread over 4 days for us to enjoy and keep us away from even thinking about turning on any of those stupid NBA games. Let's move on now to Major League Baseball in Hagen. It's been a quiet offseason so far. A couple of big names have signed. We talked about a few of them so far, but what's happened over the last week?
Well, I think the couple of big ones after Ohtani, we'll talk a little bit more about him here in a minute, but I think going for the San Francisco Giants, knowing that they lost out on Ohtani, I think going after Korean baseball star Jung-Hoo Lee with that 6-year deal was huge and probably one of the biggest ones signing over the last couple of days. And I think the other one there was the Dodgers signing Tyler Glasgow to 5 years for $135 million. It kind of set the tempo over these last week. I think the winter meetings were awful quiet. There was some other signings. Arizona signs Eduardo Rodriguez. Pittsburgh signs Rowdy Tellez, and also Andrew McCutchen signs a 1-year deal in Pittsburgh. We see Hunter Renfroe on the move. He goes to the Royals for a 2-year deal. And then in some trades, you saw Drew Campbell leave San Diego and go to San Diego, and Matt Carpenter along with Ray Kerr head to Atlanta. But then today the Braves just dropped Matt Carpenter. So kind of weird things the last couple of days.
Yeah, that one wasn't too surprising. The Braves had said even when they made that trade that they were looking to then turn Matt Carpenter. Didn't get any deals out of it. It was just a dump for Atlanta. They have so many prospects and such a deep team as it is. I'm not surprised there. And the Padres are just begging for money at this moment. Could be curious what the Braves can do with Ray Kerr. Some of those other deals you talked about, Arizona getting Rodriguez, shows that they continue to want to be a contender. They're not worried about what the Dodgers are doing. They want to be that other team right now in the NL West, with the Padres looking like they're going to fall out of it with how much money they have spent and how much money they've loaned out over the last several years. And the Giants kind of being in that holding pattern that they are in. Diamondbacks were the surprise team last year. And it's good to see them not just fall back on their laurels and going nuts. And they see that they have this young kid in Corbin Carroll who's phenomenal, and they want to build a winning team around him, and we'll see what they are able to do there. I saw a funny graphic, and I got to pull it up to bring it up. I sent it to you, but the teams that have spent the most money in the offseason would shock some people as far as who's really been active spending their money and who has not. Obviously, the Dodgers have spent the absolute most, and we'll talk about their deal with Shohei Ohtani. So they have spent $717 million this offseason. The Phillies, of course, up there, 172. Said I really like what the Diamondbacks have been doing. They've now spent $122 million as of a couple of days ago. This was on Sunday when Jeff Passan put out this tweet. But how about the Giants and the Kansas City Royals also spending over $100 million in contracts so far this offseason? That's kind of surprising for them.
Yeah, especially the Royals. I was very shocked with that one. And even that was before them doing the Hunter Renfroe deal. So that one's going to add to that number. But I think you said the Giants, and I think it all boils down to Shohei and how much that the Giants were trying to go in. As they were trying to get a number that was close to that same $700 million number, and they needed to do something. And going after this veteran from Korea, I think is going to be interesting. And I'm curious how it plays out here in this next year.
And then as of Sunday, there were 8 teams that have yet to sign a free agent. 2 of those 8 teams include your Seattle Mariners and my New York Yankees. Are you surprised the Mariners have been so quiet this offseason?
I am. I think them just with their one trade, getting going and allowing Jared Kelenic to go to Atlanta, that being the only real move that they've done. It's kind of shocking when they're normally quite busy at the winter meetings.
And then the Yankees, I'm not surprised. Their big move was to trade for Juan Soto. They got that done. They are very much in the mix for Yamamoto. We await to see where he is going to sign. He's got, a couple weeks, I think, to get that deal done now that his window has opened. We'll see there. And obviously, there are a ton of other free agents yet to sign. Again, according to Jeff Passan, he says that there are still around $2 billion worth of deals to come this offseason. So there's still a lot of movement. So what happens, this is what's so fun with Major League Baseball compared to NFL free agency or even NBA free agency. Their window opens to have negotiations. So like what? The NFL says you can start legally tampering with free agents on Tuesday, and you can start signing them on Friday. And then when Friday comes, we already know of 80% of the deals that are going to be made because agreements have already been talked about and waiting to be signed, basically, which just shows that the NFL tampers for a full month before they get the legal tampering thing. With Major League Baseball, it's completely different. Like winter meetings, yes, is usually a bit more active, maybe a bit more with trades than with other things, but that's a good time for free agents to get signed. I think this year gets a little bit messy with the Ohtani waiting until he did to sign, and now you start to wait for the other puzzle pieces to find their places. We had this the same year with, was it Mike Trout and Bryce Harper were both free agents the same year. And I want to say Bryce Harper did not sign with the Phillies until like January, and it really held everything back that offseason. And it was kind of a mad rush for the other free agents in late January going into February. I kind of have a feeling that January will be the wild year for baseball this time.
I think 100%. You look at, I forget where I saw the graphic today of, after Christmas is that 3-week period that a lot of things will happen before pitchers and catchers report. And I can't believe we're saying that. We're only about 6 weeks away until pitchers and catchers report, and there's a lot of movement that can still happen as far as some big names, and especially the one it happens to be Blake Snell. I mean, you would think that he would sign somewhere, have some kind of feeling of where he's going to be before he has to report mid February.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Blake Snell at all. I think he's waiting for the Yamamoto deal because Yamamoto is the next big piece to fall. Obviously, Ohtani goes to the Dodgers, so then it goes, okay, where does Yamamoto go? It felt like half the league was in on him, and now it seems like it is boiling down to the top 2 or 3 candidates right now, but still nothing is solidified, and a lot of teams are coming up with backup plans, but they're not fully giving up on the idea of Yamamoto at all. So for somebody like Blake Snell, it's wait for that deal and then play off of whatever his contract is and make sure you get your money from one of those teams that now feels like they're desperate because they missed out on Ohtani and on Yamamoto.
Yeah.
Speaking of Shohei Ohtani, we did talk about his deal last week, 10 years, $700 million from the Los Angeles Dodgers, and we went, that is such a ridiculous contract. They had mentioned that a lot of the money was going to be deferred. It has come out since our last show last Monday that almost all of the money in his $700 million contract is set to be deferred. There is a loophole in the rules of Major League Baseball that will be closed up extremely quickly, as it is shown exactly in the rules that there is no limit to how much money can be deferred. We've seen it so many times. Obviously, Bobby Bonilla is the most famous one, but the Dodgers have several players on their roster that have money that will be deferred. I saw a graphic where they were going to be paying Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and Shohei Ohtani a combined $100 million, like 15 years from now, right? And where they're all at the age of 50 or some ridiculous number. And so, I mean, deferred money has become a very intriguing thing for teams and players to do, but not at this level. So if you have not seen this, Ohtani has signed for 10 years. It was supposed to be $70 million a year, but now it's only $2 million a year. The Dodgers are paying Ohtani $2 million to play for their team over the next 10 years. He is right now, what I see, 17th as far as highest payroll this year on the current Dodgers roster. And then the 10 years after the contract, when most likely he will be retired or very close to being retired, the Dodgers will pay him $68 million a year over those next 10 years, not to play for them.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild, but I love it. But what do you think?
Now, you and I talked a little bit about it as it always happens, something big and everything comes out right after the show. But you and I talked, he's got so many endorsement deals. He's not going to have to worry about that here in the next 10 years. It makes me open up my eyes and want to look and wonder a little bit more. Is it more of a planning scenario to his future for him to buy in to do something on a ownership level or something like that, which, could be a huge thing, even if he goes back to overseas and does something in Asia. I could easily see that happening, and he's just planning for that future. But to have $680 million sitting there for 10 years before anything has to happen with it, who does it benefit more in the current? And that's the Dodgers.
100%. And that's why this deal is brilliant on both sides. For Ohtani, most of his endorsement deals are going to come in the next 10 years while he's playing in Los Angeles. Obviously, he's played in Los Angeles for the last several years with the Angels, but the Dodgers are just a higher stature. I'm sorry to Alicia, it's just the truth. So for him to play for the Dodgers under, that history, the endorsement deals are not only going to continue to come in, they're going to just he's going to rake it in. We're talking like $30 to $40 million a year in endorsement deals. So he doesn't need $70 million right now every year. He's getting a ton. And now, the way it's all set up, once he retires, The Dodgers are going to be paying him a buttload of money, and he's still going to get some endorsement deals. I mean, how many retired players go out there and still do commercials? And we see Ken Griffey Jr. on TV all the time now. So, I mean, there's still going to be some endorsement deals, but he is set, period. I mean, it's crazy to think that $2 million was not going to have you set for life anyways, if you just had $2 million over 10 years, but that's just the way sporting works. So that works for Ohtani. Like, he's not going to be hurting for money over these 10 years because of his endorsement deals and then all the money later on. This also does not hurt the Dodgers for two reasons. Yes, they're going to be paying $68 million a year for Ohtani not to pitch 10 years from now. And this is not a, well, we'll just worry about it later situation. It's a, we'll worry about it later situation when who knows what the luxury tax number is even going to be. The Yankees paid Alex Rodriguez like $30 million a year over his last 4 years of his contract because he was set to retire. And again, baseball contracts are guaranteed, and it never put them over the luxury tax because the luxury tax was much smaller when they made that deal to where it was at that point. Yes, it made some finagling a little difficult, but the luxury tax could be so much higher 10 years from now. Right, especially if Major League Baseball tries to create, a salary cap and a salary floor, which we've been asking for decades now, where everyone is complaining about how much money the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees and the Red Sox are all spending, but we're not complaining about how little the Oakland Athletics and the Baltimore Orioles and those teams are all spending. It's like you have to have a middle ground here, and you have to go for both sides. So for the Dodgers, sure, it's a problem in 10 years, but it might not be much of a problem. And for those going, how could you pay Ohtani $700 million? John Boy said it brilliantly on his podcast. I can't remember if it was Talking Baseball or Talking Yanks, but go check out both. Talking Baseball if you're not a Yankees fan, but check out his podcast. They do a great job. Trevor Plouffe is hilarious on there as well. But he said it great. It's like in the next 3 months, the Dodgers will have a quarter of this contract paid for. Mm-hmm. At least a quarter of these $700 million will be paid for from jersey sales to ticket prices that are obviously will go up and will be sold out all year long, especially on the days that he will pitch after next year, because obviously he's not pitching next year because of Tommy John surgery. Also, all of the Japanese sponsorships that are going to come rolling in. As John Boy brought up, the Yankees had several Japanese sponsors when they had Hideki Matsui moved into Masahiro Tanaka, and they lost those sponsors, which is why I think the Yankees are so in on Yamamoto right now, is they realize how much money you make for having a Japanese star. I'm sure the Mariners were raking it in with Ichiro for the 2 decades he was there. So by the start of the season, I would not be surprised if the Dodgers said, hey, we've made $250 million more in these last 3 months than we did last year in this 3-month period. And that is the price of having a star like Shohei Ohtani. It all works out. And yes, do the rich get richer? Absolutely. But does that mean the rich are going to win the World Series? Absolutely not. This is the other argument I have with people. Yes, the Yankees spend a lot of money. The Dodgers spend a lot of money. How many combined World Series do they have in the last 20 years? 2. It's not like they're spending way more money than you and they're winning all these World Series. Smaller market teams can win too. It seems unfair. You lose your stars more likely when you're in a smaller market like Eric is with Tampa Bay, but they come up with different ways to actually build a team. So this is good for baseball, for Ohtani to go to the Dodgers. People ask me if I was upset. No, I knew he was never going to go to the Yankees, but for him to go to the Dodgers is good for baseball. Their rule changes last year really helped. Attendance was up. Ratings were up. All the money coming in was up. And now for Ohtani to go and be a star in a star-making team it's good for baseball. I'm sorry to say. Robert, what do you think?
I think I agree 100%. With him staying in that same market is going to be the big bonus there. You're going to see a lot of these teams, Anaheim fans come over and maybe make the change over to being a Dodger fan and him staying in that area. I agree 1,000% with what you said from what John Boy said. These guys are going to make so much more extra money from the Japanese endorsements or the other monies. Do they take and here you go, let's build our own account and make a separate account for everything that's coming in, and here you go. Here's his $700 million. It's set up aside. We just have it there to write him a check every year. So a lot can happen, but I think him staying and wanting to stay in that large market is a plus, not only for the AL but also the NL. Look at what that's going to be for a matchup now between the Giants and the Dodgers with that signing and for both of these players with Huli and Otani. Can you imagine the anticipation of those two matching up against each other, especially after when Otani was able to pitch again? So I think it's a win-win for everybody involved. Does it hurt the smaller markets a little bit? But yeah, but we've known this for years. I mean, you don't go out and spend the same amount of money if you're in Cleveland or Seattle as you do if you're in LA and can charge $20 for a hot dog and have that extra money coming in. So I think that's
but you can.
Yeah,
they absolutely can. Seattle did for a couple of years. They signed people that did not work out, but they did. We just talked about Kansas City just spent over $100 million this offseason. Like, these markets can. The owners refuse. And then the fans get upset at the other teams. Don't get upset at my owner because your owner is cheap. Go get a better owner. Don't get on my owner for wanting to spend money. Well, it's the market. Like, Chicago's a huge market. The Cubs and the White Sox should be top 5 in spending. They aren't because their ownership refuses.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jesse there.
Yeah.
He talks about him, the huge DH rule change. So I think it has been benefited both the AL and the NL. I'm excited to see how much longer this stays before somebody says, "Oh, we need to go back to the original."
Yeah. Listen, give credit to Major League Baseball. The changes that they have made over the last couple of years, I have not agreed with all of them, but in the end, they're all working. Like, this sport was stagnant for decades. The viewership was going down because their fan base was dying. Not because people were leaving, they were literally passing away because they were getting aged out. The young crowd did not care for Major League Baseball. They want the fast action of NBA. They want the red zone with football. They did not care for the slow plodding game that is the game that you and I absolutely love. They've made some changes and it's starting to really work. And you need these kind of stars to help push it over the edge. And I'm just excited for everything or everyone involved. And this season is going to be so fun.
So let's dive in one more second on that, as you made a comment about some changes, and you and I messaged back and forth about one major change, and kind of excited, and hopefully the rest of MLB starts following the same way. Is we didn't talk about it, but how about the blackouts and some of these going
Get
away?
them all the way out. Was it the Twins that announced this? Yeah, the Minnesota Twins announced that none of their games will be blacked out anymore. Stand up and applaud the Minnesota Twins. And if you have MLB TV, make sure you turn on Twins games from time to time and give them the love that they deserve and give them the focus that they deserve. And if you're in the area, go to Twins games to show your love and appreciation that, hey, I can't be to 81 games, but I will come out to 5 as long as you allow me to watch the other 76 at home. And that would be really big for the Twins. And hopefully the other 29 teams agree with it. And we get rid of the blackout rule. Is so old and just pointless now. The amount of people that even have cable anymore has to be extremely low. Everyone streams everything. Allow them to watch it when they can and where they can. Again, especially if you're baseball and you have 81 chances for somebody to go there, let them watch the other ones at home. They will come out to the ballpark. Your attendance is not going to completely diminish if you allow people in your area to watch games at home, because everyone knows that the experience is different in person than it is on TV, but very few people can afford to go to 81 games a year. So get rid of the blackouts. It's ridiculous, especially if you live in the Midwest and you are hundreds of miles from 7 different clubs where, like, yeah, I can go to a baseball game, but it's a 4-hour trip. Oh, but I can't watch any of their games. The blackout rules were a mess, and I hated them. All right, let's move on to some local stuff, sir. And let's get to Lewis Clark State. Indoor track has gotten their season going. We talked about that a little bit last week, but it's still mostly basketball season over there at LC. They had a pair of games at home, and one big surprising outcome out of the 4 games that I went and watched. The women went 1-1, which was a surprising spot. The number 7 team in the country, the Warriors, did take care of business against Corbin. They won 86-50. They used an 18-0 run in the second half to really put that game away, but they were never in any danger of losing this game. Maddie Holm was fantastic, 18 points, 12 rebounds. 5 different players were in double figures. They really showed their depth in that game. And then on Saturday, they played Bushnell, and I don't know exactly what was going on. I missed the first half because of the Lewiston boys basketball game that I was covering, but I messaged Danner, who is calling these games on KOZE.com, give them love as well, the final score for the boys game, and he sent me back the women's game's halftime score, and the Warriors were down by 10. And I just sent back WTF, and he sent back absolutely, I don't get it. So from what I've heard, it was just one of those down energy games. Like Callie Stevens just seemed off. And then she ended up banging her knee in the third quarter. She's okay. She came back later in the game, but really just could not find her shot. Team as a whole shot 29% from the field. Just one of those games you want to forget. Ellie Sander was great. Had 21 points in that game, but they do lose 67-56. We'll see where they go in the next rankings. They have one more game left in the 2023 calendar year, and that is tomorrow, 5 p.m. tip-off against Walla Walla. The men have been red hot. They have won 5 in a row. They are 5-0 in Cascade Conference play. One of just 2 teams that are undefeated. Defending national champion College of Idaho has even lost a conference game already, which could shake things up down the line. But this defense, you and I complain about the NBA because there's zero defense. We talk about how any NBA fan really liked this in-season tournament they did. Everyone that said that they loved it, to me, said it was, they played harder. It felt like playoff basketball. And then I saw scores of like 130-125. Like, you're just scoring a lot. It's like you're still not playing defense. The defense is being played at the P1FCU Activity Center. They beat Corbin 78-49 after holding the Warriors of Corbin to just 25.8% shooting from the field, including 16.1% in the second half. In fact, Corbin was one of their last 18. The Warriors made it very difficult for Corbin to get any clean shot off. Jaden Bradley had a fantastic weekend. He had 17 points and 11 rebounds. John Lustig with 17 points. Glad to see him back. Warriors continue to have a lot of injury issues themselves, waiting to see if we'll get Grayson Hunt back this year at all. He's been dealing with some back stuff, I believe. But then they take care of Bushnell, 88-63. They hold them to 25.8% shooting in the first half after Bushnell put up 112 points against Walla Walla the night before. It shows you how good the Warriors defense is. Bradley had a season high with 23 points. David Brown hits his first double-double as a Warrior, 16 points, 11 rebounds, and again, 5 straight wins for LC. They also take on Walla Walla tomorrow at 7 p.m. I'm telling you right now, you need to come watch both of these 2 teams play. We knew LC women were going to be really good. They were ranked in the top 10 to start the year. They've been hanging out there. It's going to be them or Eastern Oregon to come out of this conference. Both teams should make the tournament. That team is a very deep squad under the new head coach, Caitlin Orlandi. But the men are really starting to find some depth. Austin Johnson has them playing extremely hard on defense. You guys need to come watch this team. They've had some pretty good crowds, but we need bigger ones. And it needs to get loud in there and have a lot of fun. So check out your calendars in 2024. Come support LC. Hagen,
yes,
I heard there was some drama with Clarkston. So go ahead and get to that.
Well, there was a fair amount of drama. Let's start on Tuesday as the Clarkston Bantam boys ended up welcoming in the Orofino Maniacs. Orofino, not a shy team as they have played quite well over the little bit, but Bantams trailed by 3 at the end of the first quarter and then led by 1 going into halftime. But that was all because of one player, and his name happens to be Josh Hoffman. Josh Hoffman had a career high 26 points, and of that, 18 of them came in the second quarter. Just pass the ball into the block to him. He was able to really get up in there and score a lot of his points. Same thing with Carter Steinwan, who got hot at the end. Same thing with Orofino, just a smaller unit for Orofino, but they were able to get up into the blocks and put away a shot or two and come away with that big win, 74-49 as they pulled away in the second half. But Orofino has a guy by the name of Loudon Cochran who come off the bench, 18 points off the bench and to lead all of the Maniacs in that game. So looking forward to watching that team get a little bit better. And then Friday, ugly sweater night must have been the mood because things got, keyword there, ugly. And it started in the JV game with some of the heckling coming from the Post Falls fans. First off, the girls ended up holding off and winning that one by a score of 61-56. Jaylen McCormick Marks, the Lapway transfer that is now in Clarkson with her sister Jordan. Jaylen ends up with 16 points and Kendall Wallace with 15 and Alejandra Perez with 11. And they had 2 Bantams that weren't even suited up, were not even there, and they were able to hold off Post Falls, who is a strong team. I'm looking forward to seeing what this girls team does against Lewiston, and I want to say they play each other in about 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, when Lewiston and Post Falls plays each other. So, but in the nightcap, things did get a little crazy. Very physical game. Bantams end up losing this one by a score of 52-27. Bantams never led in this game, never did score double-digit points in any of the quarter. They trailed by 10 in the at halftime, and then in the third quarter, towards the end of the third quarter, it got to be extremely chippy, where we ended up having 3 Bantams and 1 Trojan all disqualified for fighting. One had 2 technicals in that one, so things were very, very tense. As the officials even came to me doing the PA, and they're like, "Please do not announce any of this stuff. Just call the common foul. Let's move on." And that was having conversation with Coach Justin Jones and Post Falls coach Mike McLean. They were like, let's just get done with this. But Carter Steinwan was the only bright spot in this game for the Bantams. He scored 12 of the 27 points.
Yeah, pretty ugly stuff. You never want to see that, especially in high school games. And hopefully when those two meet up at some other point, it's a little cleaner.
Well, it's going to be interesting because I believe, and I had a message in to Athletic Director Shannon Wilson. He not responded yet. It is holiday, so he's probably away from his phone. How this affects the Avista tournament with it being part of the things. Do these couple of boys not get to play in the Avista tournament because of these fouls and disqualifications? Hopefully we'll know that for next week as we preview the Avista tournament.
Yeah, my belief is it's a 1-game suspension if you get ejected from a game. It could be more. We'll see what Clarkson decides to do. Again, I was not there to see the incident take place, but hopefully everything gets cleared out. And this tournament we'll talk about here in a second. It looks stacked and so much fun. As far as Lewiston basketball, girls were in action a couple of times this last week. They were able to take care of Pendleton 55-37. That game was supposed to be at LHS. I was just pulling in. I get there about an hour before the girls' game to start setting up for my radio broadcast. And right as I was pulling in, I get a call for our buddy Kevin Driscoll, who said that the games were getting moved down to the P1FCU Activity Center because Lewiston High School had lost power. So I continued driving through the parking lot and went on down there. And of course, shout out to George and that whole crew for throwing everything together as fast as they did. They were throwing tables out to make sure I was set up and ready to go, help me move wires. They were awesome. Got all the hoops out there. The far side stands were not available to sit in because they still had some of the practice hoops up from when the Warriors were practicing. But they made it work. And again, shout out to them for working quickly. The girls got a big win against the old Buckaroos, 55-37, but then lose to Sandpoint on Saturday on the road, 58-42. So the girls are 4-6 to start their year. The boys got both of their victories this week. They took care of Pendleton 61-26, and then they took care of Sandpoint 72-51. I think with the starting 5 of the Bengals, they can be a very dangerous squad, a very young team. They have 3 seniors who all contribute a lot, a couple of young talent right now. But they brought in some of the younger guys, especially late in that Sandpoint game. The game was the margin was a lot more than 21. We'll just say that the last 5 minutes definitely went to the Bulldogs as the back end of the roster right now for Lewiston needs some time, as they have a lot of freshmen, a lot of youngsters that just have not had varsity experience yet. But I think they can compete with anybody as long as they don't get into foul trouble. And this Avista tournament that we'll talk about here a little bit will be a big test for them as far as depth goes, because 3 games in 3 days can definitely take it out on you. Moscow and Pullman, though, doing some really cool stuff, trying to take a little page out of what Lewiston and Clarkson does, right?
Yeah, this past weekend, Moscow and Pullman started the Clash of Combines, their first event, and they raised over $2,000 at the Moscow Den. Packed house. Pictures I saw was crazy. So looking to see what they do in the next few years, but like I said, they raised over $2,000 for the Alternatives of Violence of the Palouse. So great program.
They need to move that to U of I. We've moved Golden Throne to the P1FCU Activity Center over at LC. I have called games at U of I for Lewiston and Moscow games when they were able to get games in there. This has to be at U of I. And make it an even bigger deal and really pack that place out and go nuts with it, get U of I involved and raise even more money. But very cool for them to do something like this for a great cause. That's always been the point of the Golden Throne.
Yep. 100%.
Have some fun with a Clarkson or Lewis and Clarkson rivalry game, but use it to raise money for good causes. Obviously, the week of Golden Throne is the event. The basketball game is just the exclamation mark on it. That seems what Moscow and Pullman is doing, but that exclamation mark needs to be done at U of I, in my opinion. Go to the Avista Holiday Tournament again. We're going to have Mike Tatko, who puts this all together next week. It's kind of the yearly meetup with him. He's always gracious enough to give us an early look at the brackets before they get announced, and always is looking to us for some input on how to run things. We're part of the group that comes up with the all tournament team at the end of it. And Mike's always gracious enough to come on and talk about this. I'm very excited to discuss with him the how everything went down, where Downey from California is coming all the way up here. They're in the Los Angeles area, and they're coming all the way up here to Lewiston to play in this tournament. Very excited to see how all of that went down. Rocky Mountain coming up here from Southern Idaho. They play Lewiston every year at some point, usually Lewiston starting their year off down in Southern Idaho, and they will get a game in there. And then what I love about this tournament is there's so many smaller schools that get involved to play the bigger schools like Lewiston and Clarkston. Moscow is a pretty decent sized school. But then you get the smaller schools. Lapway always is the big draw. So when they show up to play in this, especially on the boys' side, it's sad to see them lose their game this last week. I'm blanking on the team from Oregon that beat them. It was a big rematch from last year.
Baker City.
Yeah, Baker. Yeah, and they fell short in the finals of that tournament this last week. But Lapway has a ridiculous team, and if you've not seen them play, you absolutely need to come down to the Vista Holiday Tournament and watch them and Case Why Not and see what he can do. It's insane. Very excited to see the Kendrick boys. They're the top-ranked team in the smallest class in all of Idaho. We always thought Lapway was the smallest school that were always playing these tournaments. Great. Or Kendrick's even smaller. But I tell you what, they have Lewiston in that first round. And if Lewiston's not careful, Kendrick could pull the upset.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we get to see the Buckaroos come back too. Clarkson has already played him. Lewiston has already played him, so it'll be interesting. I think the matchup, and we'll talk about it next week, is the Downey and Lapway.
Mm-hmm.
It will be hands down the two biggest matchups. I'm hearing the same thing.
You want to reset your StreamYard and see if you can't get that fixed?
Yep.
Okay. He'll reset and see if that works. If not, maybe I'll reset and go. Maybe it's an echo coming off of mine. Thank you, Jesse, for letting us know. I'm not hearing anything, but maybe that's because it's my system that's messing it up. So we'll see where things go. Kind of run through some of the other ones. Grangeville is coming up on the girls' side. They'll take on Lewiston in their opening round matchup. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. And I'll tell you this right now. I don't make predictions on this because I call some of these games for Lewiston. So I'm not going to make predictions, but it could be really fun. We saw last year when the two small schools, it was Lapway and who was the other girls team that made it? Robert, do you remember?
Let me pull it up here.
Look through your thing. I'm blanking on the team that made it. It was a championship game at two small schools on the girls' side. That was a lot of fun. Was it Kamei that was in it last year?
Girls
My
varsity,
memory's so
we
bad.
had Lapway and Moscow, Kellogg, or Grangeville. So let me grab my other one here.
You're not helping me at all.
Well, I have like 4 of them books. So I'm looking for the one that had the writing in it. That's the biggest part.
Jesse, is there an echo still for you? Did that fix it?
I don't hear an echo anymore.
Well, that's a good sign, but we'll see if Jesse does as well. But yeah, it would not surprise me if we get a Grangeville Lapway girls finals and a Kendrick Lapway boys finals. That would be great. Very excited if we do end up getting it, a possible Clarkston Lapway girls matchup. There's some outside issues between those two schools. We won't get into it here. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. And both teams are extremely good as well. Again, we'll break it all down even more, really look at all 16 squads that are in those two tournaments. Robert, you can put that away. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm not finding it.
Oh, it was bad. Now gone. Perfect. I'm glad that worked things out. Technology can
suck
sometimes.
I think part of it happens to be that my internet has went out 3 times in the last 2 days, causing enough.
It has been bad here. I'm still getting issues with mine. I don't know how well I'm coming through, but I keep getting the warnings of unstable internet. Plug into your internet, which I am. So it's just the internet's been rough here. Let's move on to college football. And this is where we're going to wrap up the rest of this show talking about this. Before we get into the 57 bowl games this upcoming week, talk about some of the changes going on in the landscape of college football. First, feel bad for the Idaho Vandals. They've already had 2 coaches and 7 starters leave their team. Obviously, the 7 starters went into the transfer portal. Don't blame them at all. Go get that money. Go get into the FCS or FBS, excuse me, and get into some bigger schools. Some of them have already signed with some bigger schools, so that's always awesome to see. But it sucks for the Vandals, who are really on the rise. They lose a couple of assistant coaches as well, but Coach Eck, I think, will get that turned around. And then Washington State, talking about changes, has an interesting possible interim year while they work through all the legal issues with the Pac-12, or they have to wait for these other teams to exit the Pac-12 so they could do something with it. It's still a mess, but they have decided that they're basically independent this year. I don't know if it's technically a 2-team Pac-2 this year or not, or how that's all going to work. But Washington State and Oregon State will be playing 8 Mountain West opponents throughout the year. Obviously, they will keep the Apple Cup, but it is getting moved to a September game, not on rivalry week. What do you think of these moves for the Cougars in next year's schedule?
They're going to keep Portland State. They've played Portland State over the last little bit. Texas Tech they will pick up, and they will also play Oregon State among the 8 games. But the Washington game moving to even to Lumen Stadium kind of takes the feel of playing a home game away, because it should be a home game for the Cougars this year. Now it's going to be in Seattle at the stadium, Seahawks Stadium there. It's going to be a little bit tougher pill to swallow for the Apple Cup, but kind of glad they're still keeping it on the schedule.
I hate that it's September, but I agree. At least they are still getting the game in. You have to remember, Lewiston and Clarkson used to play on Thanksgiving. And then different teams got into different leagues, and rules had to be, or schedules had to be moved, and now they basically play it at either their first or second game of the year. Just try to get it in and keep the rivalry going. That brings me to a video I sent to you and Eric and a few others of Chip Kelly talking about ideas that he has come up with to change college sports. And as Eric says, it takes his super conference idea and puts it on steroids. But I want to bring it up to you and get your thoughts, and anybody else that's watching, get your thoughts as well. And his whole idea is that football should be separate from all other sports. The fact that, as he said, that UCLA football has left the Pac-12, it should not mean that their volleyball team should stop playing teams like Arizona and Arizona State and USC and UCLA, because again, it costs them so much money to have to fly across country to play these Big Ten conference games. It's going to really hurt these other sports. And I totally agree with him. His example was Notre Dame, who is an independent in football, but they're in the ACC and other sports. He thinks that that's what all college sports should be. And his idea is all schools should be independent for football. And you should set it up where what he set it up was a 64-team Power 5 conference and a 64-team Group of 5 conference, which he said you can sponsor the hell out of it and call it the Amazon Conference or the Amazon League and the Nike League or whatever you want to do. Get a bunch of money out of that. And basically, the way he has it set up is you play 7 games against teams on your side of the country or in your region, if you want to break it down even more into regions. And then you play 4 against a different regions, and you can rotate which region you play that year. And then you play 1 game against, for his UCLA Bruins, you play 1 game against a Group of 5 school. And you keep some rivalry games there and still get some of the smaller schools that will get a chance to play the bigger schools. The big stuff that I really liked and believed why this will never happen is, instead of all of these conferences fighting for television deals, which have completely imploded the Pac-12 and have seen SEC and the Big Ten really cannibalize other conferences, is have all teams, all 128 teams, share the same television contracts. to him, he believes the teams in the Big Ten should have the same television contracts as those in the Mountain West. And let ESPN and Fox and NBC and all of them come up with their own TV contracts and I dropped my stuff. All buy into one giant television contract and then take that money, spread it to all the schools equally. But then all of those schools have to take a chunk of that money and give it to the players. He's hoping that that would then negate some of the need for the NIL deals. I don't think he believes that they need to go away completely, but now players are not feeling like they are like so important on them because now the schools are paying a flat rate to the players. Every school will pay the same rate from the television contract. And it'll bring balance back to college football that we have not had in years, even though they continue to spout competitive balance and continue to make rules that are completely imbalanced. But, I mean, it's going to get so much worse the way that they're going right now. So I love this idea, but greed is going to make sure it never happens. What do you think?
Yeah, I like his thought and his talking about it. And he said it like 3 or 4 different times. He says, I haven't thought about this very much, you know,
Which
and he keeps
obviously he had.
He has, and he's really thought this out. I agree with everything, but down to the final part of the TV side of it. I don't think the TV deals will want to go away from what they have in these conferences, what they get and all that, especially with as much money you see going into the SEC TV side, the Big Ten TV deal, having their own stations, all that. I would think these guys would not want to get away from it, but this would be the smartest, easiest thing to do, you know, and to, like he said, save money from teams back, forth, and for them to recognize that football is its own thing would end a lot of issues almost immediately, knowing that football's its own thing, and you keep the Pac-12, you keep the idea of you and I are all about the history and all that, and even in baseball and stuff. So it's still there, but as far as football, you're all part of the 64 or the other 64.
Yeah, and to me, it would allow the Big East to go back to the way the Big East was. Big East was fantastic at basketball. It got completely decimated for some of their schools that also had a good football program. And then all of a sudden you had the American Conference that kind of fell out of the Big East. And let's go back to those kind of conferences and keep the other schools in regional rivalries and let football, which has ballooned into its own thing, continue to grow at its own rate, because we've seen it already with a lot of these schools where they drop programs because they cannot afford them. Stanford's been trying to get rid of other sports for years and they get a lot of pushback for it. But now with them moving out of the Pac-12, there's another big excuse for them to get rid of some of these smaller sports, because now they're going to say, well, we can't have them travel to the East Coast 3 or 4 times a year. We can't afford it for how little money they bring in. So I love what Chip Kelly says. It will never happen, unfortunately, but we can hope. Let's end up this show with our college football bowl picks. What is the score right now for the one game going on? Because I keep looking at your chin because you're watching.
University of Texas San Antonio is leading 21-17 over Marshall.
Who did I pick?
We both took UTSA.
There you go. I am 7-1 somehow right now. I am beating 98.4% of the pickers on ESPN. You are 6-2. So I'm crushing you.
I took Georgia Southern in the first game compared to Ohio.
Let's get to it. I can't count this high. 3, 6, 10, 12 games till our next show. So let's quickly get through it. On Thursday, you have the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl between South Florida and Syracuse. Who do you got?
I'm going to take South Florida. I think it's going to be a home game, and hopefully they can quiet the Orangemen.
I will take Syracuse. Why? I don't know. Why not? Let's have some fun with it. Friday, Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. Georgia Tech and UCF. Give me the Knights.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stay right there with them. As much as I would love to take the Yellow Jackets, I think they are not going to win. Give me UCF.
Is Georgia Tech still a option-based offense like they were in the early 2000s when I really was into college football?
Well,
if they are, that's why I think the Yellow Jackets were always so tough to play in a bowl game, is because their offense was so different than what teams would see all year long. I just don't know if they are still in that setup or not.
I believe they are, but it's been a while since I've seen them do it.
And then on Saturday, there's so many, which will go up against some NFL games. The 76 Birmingham Bowl between Troy and Duke. Give me the Trojans, who are big favorites, I think, in that game.
I don't remember. I think they are. Who knows? I'm going to take Troy also.
Nobody knows. Nobody will ever know.
Nah.
Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. James Madison gets into a bowl. They'll take on Air Force. Give me James Madison. By the way, Troy's a 7.5-point favorite over Duke.
I think James Madison is going to run the gamut. Give me James Madison.
The famous Idaho Potato Bowl between Georgia State and Utah State. Who do you got?
I am going to take Utah State. This was one that I was coin flipped about back and forth.
I remember we've had Georgia State on some of our pick'ems throughout. I remember their running back Carroll, who had over 1,300 yards. So while I think they have the longer trip, which gives the advantage to Utah State, I am going to take Georgia State in that contest. 68 Ventures Bowl. South Alabama is a 17-point favorite over Eastern Michigan. Do you have the guts?
No.
To go against a 17-point favorite?
No.
No, me neither. SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. Utah is a 6.5-point favorite over Northwestern. We've seen the Utes play several times in their last year of the Pac-12. That defense is really good. The defense will win the bowl game. Give me Utah.
Yeah, that's the big thing. They played so well this year at the very beginning, and we were on them a few times. I'm going to stay with them. Give me the Utes.
And then in one that's shocking to me, the East Point Hawaii Bowl. San Jose State is a 10.5-point favorite over Coastal Carolina, yet we both went for the Chanticleers. Why did you go for the upset?
I took them because nobody has bought into what they can do, and I'm not impressed with what San Jose State did in their conference this year. I think they can come away with a big win. So give me Coastal Carolina.
I only went Coastal Carolina because we picked them a couple times in our pick'ems throughout the year, and anytime I picked against them, they won, and they bit me in the butt. So no chance was I picking against Coastal Carolina. I thought that was going to be a game we had different for sure. I was wrong. On Tuesday, before our show goes on the air, Bowling Green, who's 7-5, goes up against Minnesota, who's 5-7. This is a bowl game, people. And the 5-7 Minnesota squad is a 3.5-point favorite. And I hate to say it, I'm taking Minnesota.
I'm taking Minnesota too. Bigger club. They should just handle Bowling Green like nobody's business.
I know I've only missed one bowl game so far. I'm rooting against myself there. I do not want the 5-7 squad to win, but I couldn't help myself. The Surf Pro First Responder Bowl, Texas State is a 5.5-point favorite over Rice. This is only an insider joke for people that never watched the show, but who the hell is Rice? Give me Texas State.
Yeah, I'm going to take Texas State with this one.
And then finally, on a game that will kick off when we go on the air a week from today, Kansas is a 12.5-point favorite over the Rebels of UNLV. Give me the Jayhawks.
As much as I would love to take UNLV and what they did this year, I just can't with Kansas. So give me Kansas.
By the way, between next show and the show after that, there's 21 bowl games. I hate bowl games with the passion, but I'm going to crush you in them.
I'm keeping. You've only got a one game, and we took the very first game different. So,
yeah,
I think we have three different this one.
While we bowl on Thursday, I will get a 2-game lead on you. That's just how it'll work. That will do it for this show. It's been a lot of fun. So glad to be back on a Tuesday, back to our regular format. It just felt more comfortable to be back in this format. We still had topics we didn't even get to. We had so much to talk about, and there'll be so much more to talk about next week. Again, we'll have Mike Tatko on the show live to preview the Avista Holiday Tournament. Of course, we'll talk about Week 16 in the NFL. Hopefully, Yamamoto will be a Yankee by then. Hopefully, he signs tomorrow because always big news happens the day after our show. And yes, we'll talk about the 73,000 bowl games that have happened between now and then. But again, I want to wish everyone out there a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from Robert and myself. Again, we appreciate every single one of you that have supported us over the 162 episodes now here on the R&R Sports Report. And not just here, we want to thank McVeigh Entertainment. We want to thank Nelly Broadcasting for allowing both of us to be able to call some high school games on top of everything else. We want to thank Alicia and everyone at LC for allowing us to help out with LC games and everyone else involved in all of those businesses. We've had a lot of fun over these last several years, kind of growing ourselves in the community, not just on this show, because not a ton of people watch this show, and that's totally fine. We just do this to have fun and be able to banter about both local and national sports. It's been something we've been talking about for a long time to do. But again, to be a part of Clarkson Athletics, Lewiston Athletics, LC, we could not do it with everyone out there giving us that support. And of course, everyone in our families as well, to allow us to escape, to do this show and to go and do those sporting events as well. So we thank all of them and wish everyone out there happy holidays. Robert, any last words?
No, 100%. I'm right there with you. As we talk about, I had to put some Christmas behind it, but yeah, you hit it. First off, to our families, as I told you before we came on, the dad called, wanted to talk for 20 minutes before we started the show, and he knows how important it is to you and I. And thank you to my wife and your fiance. Yeah, it's all about
what is this format? Get this format off of there. What is this?
So anyway, Merry Christmas. Everybody have a very safe holiday. And hopefully when you come back, I have a 2-game lead in the bowls.
Jesse, a full MLB season, and we won more games than the Oakland Athletics. Or we've had more good shows than the Athletics won games this year, I hope. Again, happy holidays. Hope you have fun. We will be back a week from today, the day after Christmas. Come on in, spend some more holiday cheer with us. Mike Tatko will be on the show. But until then, that's Robert. I'm Randy. This is the R&R Sports Report. And until then, we are out.